Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another of the Spark webinars that we're hosting today. We've got two very high-caliber medtech companies that are presenting today, namely SymPhysis Medical and Ostoform, of course. Both brilliant opportunities for investments, both backed by institutional money from VCs in the UK and investment syndicates here in Ireland. Both have also received state and EU funding over the years as well. So both companies also are excellent EIS tax break companies as well. And both of those are at the rate of 35%. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with EIS, it's a really good tax incentive that the Irish government offer investors who want to invest in startup businesses. And it means that you can get 35% of a reduction in these cases, and sometimes up to 50% reduction on your investment that you put into these brilliant startup companies. Both of the companies that we're showcasing today have got multiple PhDs as promoters or within their ranks, and very highly qualified personnel all around. So I'll introduce them to you in a second. But first of all, just a little bit of housekeeping. We will be done by 2 o'clock today, and we will have a question and answer session as well after each of the presentations. For those, if you'd like to ask a question, please add it into the Q&A at the bottom of the page, not the actual chat function, and we'll ask the questions on your behalf to the promoters. So first of all, I'd like to introduce SymPhysis Medical to you. So Tim, Michelle, would you like to switch on your camera, please? Great to see you, and thanks very much for joining us today. Of course, SymPhysis itself is an award-winning medical device company that has developed a transformative product that's treating a common complication of late-stage cancers called malignant pleural effusion, which is the buildup of fluid in the lungs for the people who are unfortunately in their latter stages of cancer, and it's a very nasty thing to actually have. Tim is a proud Welshman who has been in Ireland now for many, many years, almost as many as I have, I think. He studied materials engineering for his primary degree and has gone on to do 2 postgraduate degrees in medical device and bioinnovation. He co-founded SymPhysis in 2021 and is the CEO. He is joined today by his co-founder, Dr. Michelle Tierney. Michelle has a host of academic qualifications as well. An undergraduate degree in pharmaceutical sciences, followed by a PhD in chemistry, and has diplomas in bioinnovation and medical devices too. And Michelle is the scientific officer in SymPhysis. Guys, you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us today. And we're looking very much forward to your presentation. So if you'd like to share your screen, I'll slide off into the background, and I'll see you in a few minutes. And hopefully we'll have some questions posed by our investors, which we'll find in the Q&A inbox in a few minutes. Okay, guys, I'll leave it to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here today to tell everybody about our story in SymPhysis Medical. And what we'd like to do is just give you a little bit of the background. So you've heard a little bit about our bios there, but we actually established the company in 2018 in Galway. It was through the BioInnovate program where we identified this unmet need. We are targeting a transformational product for clinicians and patients in the area of malignant pleural effusion, which we'll go into in a little bit now. And specifically, we're developing the first significant novel device in this space for over 25 years. And that's around a novel anchor technology, a smart home drainage device, and a remote patient monitoring app. And what we are trying to do in the first instance is really to address the patient independence for these patients that really do deserve better. So we've raised over 9 million in funding to date, 6.2 million in equity funding and 3 million in grant funding. We've had a number of patents granted across multiple geographies and for varying parts of our technology. We've conducted 7 usability studies in the UK and the US. That's specifically to prove that our technology can be inserted and removed for the clinical side of things, and then for the patients that it can be used independently at home. And we've worked with the top centres for those studies, ensuring that they are gold standard studies that will be submitted to the Food and Drug Administration. We've conducted 9 preclinical studies, again, to prove the technology can be inserted, removed, but also stay in place for a significant amount of time. And we've met with the FDA, which is really important to ensure that we fall in line with their expectations of what we submit for a technical file. So all of the testing that we do, all of the development that we do needs to fall within the guidelines for the FDA, and we've ensured that we are within that expected process from them. So a little bit about malignant pleural effusions, or fluid in the chest. It's a large buildup of fluid. So typically for a healthy adult, it's about 1 to 2 teaspoons of fluid. It helps the lung glide over the chest wall, but this can build up to about 2 liters. And that puts significant pressure on the lung and on that diaphragm, and then the breathing mechanism is interrupted and causes severe breathlessness for these patients. About half of all late-stage cancer patients get this buildup of fluid, so it is a big issue. The patients lose independence as soon as they're diagnosed with a malignant pleural effusion, and that repeated fluid is building up. There's a huge healthcare cost associated with it. In the US alone, it's $5 billion annually, and similar in Europe with a similar population size. And the life expectancy is typically between 3 to 12 months. So this is dealt with specifically in the palliative care setting. And the most important thing for these patients is quality of life and independence.
We've assessed the market opportunity for malignant pleural effusions across both the US and the EU as our initial markets to launch, with a total addressable market of 2 billion. And some of the key drivers in this space relate to the fact that clinicians are seeking a technology and a solution that is more relates to outpatient as opposed to inpatient method of addressing this condition, and also to they're seeking less invasive devices because they're quite mindful of the patient population and the particular needs of that patient population with palliative care needs. And the need for palliative care generally is going to double by 2040, and also the number of adults over the age of 65 in the US is set to double by 2060. So this market is on the increase all of the time, and healthcare systems are going to struggle with that increase unless something comes along that takes the pressure off. There are other markets outside of just fluid in the chest that our device can address in the future, such as fluid in the abdomen as a result of cancer, also fluid in the chest as a result of non-malignant conditions, and also inpatient drainage, which are all in themselves are significant markets that our device can address down the line. So this need was identified through the BioInnovate program that Tim and I both took part in, and it was during that time when we were shadowing clinicians where we firsthand saw the multiple pain points there are with the current technology to address this particular area, and the current technology being indwelling pleural catheters. The pain points we saw related both to how the device is inserted in the body and then eventually secured, requiring highly invasive, highly traumatic procedures to secure at that external portion of the drainage tube, and also on the right-hand side, what the patient and their family and carers had to endure once the patient went home, managing an external tube that's very cumbersome, multiple layers of dressings. They drain with what you can see on screen here is an evacuated bottle, which has high levels of suction that when delivered to the chest cavity for some patients can be quite painful, and therefore that whole experience around draining, which has to be done every 2 to 3 days, can be a procedure that they really find very uncomfortable and sometimes distressing to perform. And so these are the 2 key areas that we wanted to focus on to bring usability and just improve the experience for all stakeholders involved. So this is when we came up with the concept for release, which is a novel drainage technology addressing both those pain points that clinicians see in terms of difficulty with inserting and securing the device. Our device can be secured via just 1 incision and at far less force than is currently required to make that insertion a lot more streamlined, and even for newer clinicians in the space, a lot easier for them to be trained to perform this procedure. In the middle, you can see then what the surface of the patient's skin looks like when that procedure is complete. So we have developed our own dressing, which is an all-in-one dressing, taking the cumbersome nature of managing multiple layers of dressings away. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the environment in a patient's home and what it looks like when they need to drain. So there's a one-button activation on that drainage hub you can see on the table, which hugely simplifies draining that fluid. And there's a digital interface that can read certain key bits of information off of that. And all in all, it's there to make that home drainage procedure a lot easier. We are also complementing this main device with a remote monitoring app, which we are in the late stages of development, and we've already seen the impact of this app in real-world scenarios.
So this is just a little bit about the validation from clinicians. Now, we've worked really closely with the clinicians across all of the top centres in the US over the last 7-8 years since we started on this programme. But we want to ensure that when we've developed the device and got the feedback from everybody, that we have actually developed the correct device. And this is feedback from those centres to say that, you know, this really is what we were looking for. And if we were to compare it to the current technology, how does it score? So it's an unusual scoring system, but 4 would be the baseline with the current indwelling pleural catheter, and anything above that is better and anything below is worse. So what we really need is to see an equivalence with the insertion and removal or clinical performance, but we really need to be much better with the home drainage procedure, because this initially is where we're going to get the adoption from. It's because we're trying to maintain those patients in their own homes and not need them to come into hospital. And you can see here that a 6.4 scoring out of 7 really does drive home what the clinicians really believe the benefits of this system to be. But we're also higher in the other areas as well. So saying that we have a slightly different insertion procedure and the way that we anchor it, the clinicians are seeing that as better than the current technology.
We've also given a lot of consideration to the costs around what we are delivering and potential cost savings. So on the left-hand side, you can see that with our technology release on the left and the traditional indwelling pleural catheters on the right, there are significant savings to be made with our solution. And this largely comes down to the potential absence of any nurse home visits needed, because patients will be draining independently, and some other areas relating to, for instance, the supplies. So if our device is more effective, then patients will need less drainage supplies as well. So there's up to 30% cost saving with our device compared to what's currently there. And we've also looked at reimbursement, in particular for the US, and there are existing codes there that we fall under from the healthcare systems paying for this device. So we are basically leveraging existing systems there for our own device. When we look at the main competitive differentiators between what we are doing and the current technology, as Tim mentioned, the main target here is to relieve breathlessness, and that is what the current technologies do. However, what we identified is there's multiple other areas where huge improvement is needed to better that patient experience. And we feel we are the only company in this space making those significant changes to make that whole experience for not only the patients, but their family and also the clinicians much better, and to streamline the whole patient pathway.
So if we look at the main indwelling pleural catheter competitors out there, so these are the ones that currently have technologies in the market, so IPCs in the market. Becton Dickinson created this market in 1997. So like we said at the start, over 25 years, there hasn't been any significant development. And all of these other devices, the Merit Medical, Rocket Medical, B-Braun, they are all excellent devices, and they really do great work at relieving the breathlessness for the patient and providing some independence, but they don't really address that real independence piece that we can do with our technology and enabling the patients to really, truly drain independently. So when we see what's currently on the market, we acknowledge that these are definitely serving the patients, but they do deserve so much better. And this is our route to market. So we froze the design back in December of last year. So it highlighted that we were checking with the clinicians that we'd actually designed the right device. We'd come to that conclusion. Now is the time to freeze it. And since then, we've been developing the manufactured components and ready to get those studies necessary to submit to the FDA. So those are usability studies, a pivotal preclinical study, and then we submit that paperwork and the testing and everything that's necessary for a medical device to be developed and brought to the market. and with the aim of launching that product towards the end of 2026, in and around August, September, where we can have those 10 to 20 patients have the device into the top centres that we've been working with right from the start. And as soon as we generate that data, that then unlocks further investment with venture capitalists that need to see clinical data to show that this device really has that benefit that we expect it will amongst patients. And we have a really strong team that's delivering on this. So we're in full execution mode now, a lot of experience in medical devices, and we have really strong supports from clinicians right from the get-go. Dr. Breen has worked with us right from the start of the BioInnovate program, and Dr. Grozu in MD Anderson, which is the top cancer centre in the world, has really been helping us develop the correct device to get to where we are today and continue to support to help with those studies as we go. So with our sales projections, we just wanted to highlight that it's a very measured and controlled output. So we want to stay quite small at the start, ensure that we monitor the progress of those patients as they get in the devices inserted. And once those do prove themselves out, then we see those figures really starting to rise. As we see currently, there aren't any other technologies that we can see coming onto the market in a similar timeframe to us. So if we are showing that we have all of these additional benefits, we believe that we can really start to ramp up those sales in year 3, 4, and 5.
So this whole Spark campaign is part of a larger C+ 6.5 million raise, which is effectively our development and launch raise, with the key milestones being getting our device into those initial 20 patients, understanding the benefit, and then further rolling out from there, and prior to that, securing FDA clearance.
And clinicians really do see this being the next technology to look out for. So Dr. Nick Maskell, or Professor Nick Maskell, we've been working with for a number of years now, thinks this could be massive. Professor Gary Lee is probably one of the top 2 or 3 key opinion leaders in the world, looking at the potential of inpatient chest drains, which we outlined previously. And Dr. Grozu has been really supportive on ensuring that we understand the needs of the patients and believes this could be a game changer. So we'd both just like to thank you for your attention. We really look forward to the Q&A. And we are really driving a technology that we genuinely believe has a major potential to improve patient quality of life, independence, and comfort. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Michelle. Thanks very much, Tim. Wonderful presentation there, and very clear and precise. Right, we've got a number of questions already landing in. So as I said earlier on, if you do have a question, please put it into the Q&A, not the chat where I've just kind of flashed something in, but the Q&A box. It makes it easier for Fergal and I to kind of find out where everything is. So Fergal, do you want to kick off with the first one there, please?
I have a first question. Thanks, guys. Just in from an investor just before the presentation. So just in terms of the FDA clinical trial, what's the duration of that? And also, what will be the projected cost of it, and how will you intend to fund those costs?
So our FDA clinical trial will come post clearance. So we do not need to demonstrate or provide clinical data prior to submitting to the FDA, because of the similarities between some aspects of our device and current what they call predicate devices on the market. So we can leverage certain things that are known about the current devices, which means we don't necessarily need to conduct a trial prior to going to the FDA, and that's one of the, I suppose, upsides of our particular device and the risk classification into which it sits. And then in terms of a future clinical trial, that will very much come once we're on the market. After those 20 patients, it's likely to be conducted in 2 to 3 centres within the US and perhaps a couple of sites in Europe. That very much will sit within the Series A round that Tim would have mentioned on that slide. It wouldn't necessarily be factored into our current C+ round. It sits in that Series A. It's probably, if we were to give it a ballpark right now, that could be 2 to 3 million in itself to conduct a clinical trial of that nature.
And if
we're alive.
Absolutely. And if we were to zone in on those first 10 to 20 patients, That's very much going to be clinician-led. That's the plan of why we have the good relationships with those clinicians in those top 2 centres. So that will keep the costs down significantly. Those patients go through the natural patient pathway anyway, so that we go through an inclusion and exclusion criteria, which isn't that prohibitive. And we expect those costs to be significantly lower than anyone would expect, really, for a clinical trial. We're going through those costs right now, and it'll take us probably another 6 months to really get a proper handle on them, but it won't be significant.
Excellent. Thank you.
Question here regarding why you're focusing on FDA approval in the US and why delay. Sorry, no, you are focusing on FDA, and that's absolutely. But why are you delaying the approval from EMA? Could you not do the 2 in parallel?
So unfortunately, you could, but by trying to address both the degree of requirements that is in Europe right now, in tandem with addressing the FDA requirements, overall that would delay getting to the market in the first instance. So that's why we made a conscious effort because of the varying requirements, and there's a higher burden for Europe. So if we were to go to Europe, we would need patient data to get onto the market. And so that's an additional element of evidence and cost that would prohibit us from getting to the market. We felt by going to the US through this 510(k) pathway, which is a little less burdensome in terms of the evidence generation, that we could get to our patients quicker, which is effectively, a key driver for us, is that patients can benefit from this device as soon as possible. So hence going to the FDA first, getting it on the market, that in itself allows us to generate clinical evidence that in turn can be used to satisfy the European requirements. So all in all, we do feel our strategy in the main will allow us to reach the most amount of patients we can in the time frame that's available to us.
And another key driver of that is our clinical group. So predominantly the top key opinion leaders are kind of focused in around the US. So we've got that phase 1 and phase 2 plan for going into the top 2 centres and then a further 5 centres afterwards. And also there's the other part of reimbursement and having a homogeneous market across the entire state. So we would have to do separate market access for each geography in Europe and beyond, whereas we unlock the US in one go with the FDA clearance. And then when we work on the reimbursement codes, that ensures that we have reimbursement across the states, and then that's working on payment then. So it's a very focused and thought out process for us.
Very good, thank you. Perfect.
Excellent, makes sense. I know, Tim, we spoke before with an investor who was very impressed with your IP protections. Could you just maybe give us a rundown or just some more detail on your patent portfolio, just for our investors on the call today?
Absolutely. Michelle's a bit closer to the patent portfolio, so I'll defer to Michelle.
Yeah. So when we were originally part of the commercialization fund, we filed quite early. So we have patent secured on the medical anchor. So that's the component that allows us to secure our device via that one incision and simplifies that insertion procedure for the clinicians in the hospital, and basically acts as the platform that allows our whole system on the body to be a lot more discreet, neater, and it underpins the usability. So that is what we consider our most novel aspect. We already have a number of grants around the world, and in our key territory of the US as well, which was a huge milestone for us to reach. We also filed after that our overall drainage system, our system patent, that's also granted in a number of territories, including Europe as well. And then beyond that, we have a trademark, we have a design right on the drainage hub, which was the system on the table, and we continue to assess our intellectual property position and what's coming out of our R&D research on a regular basis. We're due to file a new patent in the next few weeks as well, on another novel aspect. So we focus quite a lot of our efforts on intellectual property. We work with specialists in this area so that we are forward thinking, that we're considering competitors in the market to ensure we have freedom to operate. So we put a huge amount of effort into that.
And just one small bit to add on to the end, we're not in the business of exaggerating, but we have an anchor technology that can be used in many different areas outside of what we would have highlighted previously in the presentation. And it really is extremely novel. We haven't seen anything that is causing us any concern. So we will, when we can, investigate those other areas. But Michelle said earlier, you know, we can't do the two together, Europe and the US. Similarly, we have to ensure that we use our resources in the best way that we can right now, and we can investigate those once we've proved out the first technology.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. So given that BD control the market share in this space, how will SymPhysis approach entering the market uptake and competition? Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something I kind of briefly brushed on the competitor slide. So you've got Becton Dickinson, who have been the biggest market share in this space for over 25 years. And it's clear to see why, because the other technologies are so similar. So the reason to change, or the reason to believe for clinicians is sometimes a bit difficult. So if you look at Becton Dickinson, they may have such a presence in a hospital in the US, for example, that they would be able to, the patient sitting in their bed would be able to switch to channel 108, and there would be guidance on how to drain your catheter. They're that embedded into the system. Now, if you are another company coming in to try and get that market share with a similar system, that's a very difficult sell. But that's why we've worked so closely with these clinicians for so long. We really understand what their reason to change is. And we believe that we have that over all of the other competitors that are on the market, and some new ones that are slightly changing what the catheter looks like, but not similarly not addressing the independence piece. So we believe that we have that significant step change, the reason to believe, and we have the buy-in from the clinicians. So that all of those put together will give us the foot into the door that we need to prove our technologies in the top centres. And then through their networks, we'll be able to expand that out to the wider groups in the US and then globally.
Just a technical question for you both. So good to see some innovation in this area. In the past, I've seen the pain, discomfort in patients. Also, just do you envisage risks of infection, and how may they be addressed with your current platform?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the infection piece, if that's the main bit of the question I'm picking up on, because we put so much consideration around touch points and ease of use and one-handed drainage, our perception is we've done a lot to help with the sterility and the hygiene of the condition, or of the drainage process at home overall. To make any claims around, for instance, reducing infection is very difficult at this stage of a device when they're not yet on the market, because infection studies are usually done on huge populations to demonstrate that. The feedback we've got from clinicians around their perception of what ours might be like in terms of the current devices, in terms of infection rates, is they don't foresee it increasing the infection rate. So the existing infection rate with IPCs is about 5%. And they said if yours is 5% or lower, that's acceptable. The only thing they don't want to see is increased infection rates. We don't expect to see that. However, as I said, it's when we're on the market, we'll be able to demonstrate that. But through its usability, minimizing touch points, we feel that it's unlikely to increase infection rates.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. Final question is around the investment. So what kind of return rather on investment do you believe investors are likely to make over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so with the markets have changed a considerable amount now over the last 3 to 5 years. So going back 3 to 5 years, not forward 3 to 5 years. And we would have seen a lot more investment and acquisition from some of the multinational companies, some of the strategics. That would have changed considerably a number of years ago. And so if we look at the potential of an early exit year, an early exit, we would say, would be post FDA clearance. So in about a year, 12 to 18 months time. That's slightly less likely to happen now, but we don't know how the markets will change over the next 12 months. But at that point, if we had an early exit, we'd expect someone coming in now might get a return on the investment of about 4x. But then if you look at us growing as a company, and that's what we're here for, we're here to grow a strong indigenous company in Ireland bringing in investment, increase in employment, and we believe that we can deliver on that. And that is why we've been bringing in the best people when we look at the development of the device, when we look at the commercial aspect of it in the US, people that really understand this market and really can deliver on us getting the device to a commercial outcome. So if we were to grow to 3, 4, 5 years time in about that period, the 3 to 5 period, we'd be looking at anywhere between a 10 to 12x on that money.
Very good. And that's obviously before EWIS gets into play as well, where it makes it even more attractive, obviously. Guys, there are loads of more questions here, but we've run out of time, unfortunately. So we will put all those questions together. We'll send them on to you, and we'll get you to answer them in a written format, and we'll publish them on the site in the next day or two as well. So, guys, thank you very much for your time. We will now switch over to Dr. Kevin Keller from Ostoform.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Kevin, if you'd like to start, there you are. Hello, good to see you. Let me just do a quick introduction, if I may, please, Kevin. So Ostoform has developed a number of solutions that enable stoma bag users to live a life free of the worry of leaks and skin complications, which are a massive problem for people who have a colostomy bag, for example. It's a surprisingly large market size of over $3 billion, and Ostoform is very much placed ready for that. It's already the products that Ostoform already have are already approved by the FDA and are already generating revenues, and which are predicted to be over 700,000 euros in this year. Kevin himself is like the other two presenters, a PhD in biomedical engineering with undergraduate degrees in medical device innovation and a master's in technology entrepreneurship. And Kevin, of course, is the CEO of Ostoform. So Kevin, you're very welcome.
Thanks very much, Chris. And
perhaps you could share your slides and get on with the presentation. And like SymPhysis, we'll ask your Q&A. We'll do your Q&As after you finish. So we'll see you in 10 or 12 minutes or so.
Thanks very much, Chris. And thanks to Michelle and Tim for an excellent presentation. Great opportunity. So my name is Kevin Keller, CEO of Ostoform. At Ostoform, we developed and commercialized a range of Class 1 medical products to improve the lives of ostomy patients. Often as a result of bowel cancer or inflammatory bowel disease, output from the bowel has to be redirected to the abdomen with the creation of an ostomy, and the output from the ostomy is collected in an ostomy pouch secured around the stoma or the ostomy. The output from an ostomy can be very corrosive and fluidic, and when the output flows from the ostomy into the ostomy pouch, it often leaks onto the patient's skin, causing skin complications. 93% of patients worry about these skin complications. 63% experience skin complications as a result of this, and it accounts for 1/3 of visits to stoma care nurses. So there's a real cost to the healthcare system here as well. The current solution to this, provided by all ostomy companies, is a ring of hydrocolloid adhesive secured to the skin around the ostomy. But these rings are absorbent, so they absorb the corrosive output from the ostomy. And when they absorb the corrosive output, they break down. And when they break down, the corrosive output contacts the skin, resulting in these skin complications or chemical dermatitis. And if you can imagine sticking an adhesive bag onto this broken, damaged skin, it's painful. It means that the bag doesn't stick properly, so the patient's afraid to leave the house in case the bag might fall off. So there's a major impact on patient quality of life. Ostoform has introduced a flexible, non-absorbent component, Flow Assist, secured to the area around the stoma to effectively drain the corrosive output away from the patient's skin and into the pouch. So the corrosive output is not absorbed by the hydrocolloid adhesive. It means that the hydrocolloid doesn't break down. It lasts for longer, protects the skin for longer, resulting in healthy skin and improved patient quality of life. So we've defined the problem in detail, and we've come up with an effective solution. This technology, Flow Assist, is patented across the US, Europe, China, Japan, Australia, and Canada. And we started with the Flow Assist Seal, which is an accessory, an accessory product. It's now on market in 8 countries, and we've recently incorporated this Flow Assist technology into an ostomy pouch, which significantly expands and increases our market opportunity. These products are CE marked, FDA registered, they have US reimbursement codes assigned with high volume manufacturing and patents in place. We also have comprehensive evidence around the clinical benefits of Flow Assist with 5 clinical studies published in top peer-reviewed ostomy journals, all demonstrating a clear trend towards improved skin condition. We've taken these 5 clinical studies and we've worked with the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, their health economics research group, and they have spoken to clinicians who have used Flow Assist. They've looked at additional case studies that have been done around the use of Flow Assist. And with our clinical studies, they've concluded that Flow Assist can save the NHS in the UK £10 million per year. And it does that by preventing leaks. And by preventing leaks, the patient's changing their bags less often. And by changing their bags less often, they're using fewer products, resulting in cost savings for healthcare systems. So with that, with those cost savings, we've been able to achieve premium reimbursement in a number of markets. And in the US market, we have full market access established with FDA reimbursement codes. We sell our products through the largest medical device distributors in the US, in Byram, Cardinal, and Medline. We've gone through a highly competitive application process to be awarded designation for the 2 largest group purchasing organizations in the US, Vizient and Premier. That breaks down a major barrier to entry into US hospitals, and we can now much easier sell our products into US hospital systems through these GPO listings. We have an active fulfillment center that ships samples to patients and ships products to our end customers. And we have an operational CRM in HubSpot that drives everything we do in terms of digital marketing, customer service, and patient transition service. The Flow Assist Seal is on 7 additional markets outside of the US, in the UK, Canada, France, Czech Republic, Poland, Ireland, and Switzerland. And we plan to appoint distributors in additional 2 to 3 markets, maybe more this year. So the market access, both within the US and outside of the US, is now very much established. And we'll also commercialize our Flow Assist pouch in markets outside of the US in some of these markets this year, resulting in a significant uptick in revenue. We also continue to innovate along with our products on market. We're working in the background on a project funded by the Disruptive Technology Innovation Fund, an Irish government grant, to develop, first of all, a completely novel manufacturing method where we're going to be able to injection mold flexible polymers onto hydrocolloid adhesives, resulting in an ability to design ostomy products in 3 dimensions. They're typically designed in 2 dimensions. By designing in 3 dimensions, we can introduce new and exciting usability features that make the product much more intuitive and easy to use for the patient, but also take it from being a medical device and really turn it into a lifestyle product. So it's really exciting from a consumer perspective, as well as with the clinical benefits. And this product will be available in 2026. So at this point, we're moving from having an accessory Ostoform seal in a smaller market to recently and continuing to launch the pouch in a number of markets. We've also got another innovative product called the Crest, which is very popular in the market already. And then the Cupola product, which we launch in 2026. So we're moving from playing in a $200 million seal market to having our market access established to commercialize our pouch in what is a $3.4 billion market in which there is a major clinical need and we have a solution. And it's a market that's growing, driven by aging population and the rising prevalence of inflammatory bowel disease. This year, as Chris said, we're on track for revenue of 700,000. We've doubled our revenue every year since 2022. And we, importantly, by 2027, expect to hit profit. And we'll achieve profit in 2027 with revenue of 2.2 million and having recently significantly reduced our cash burn and reduce our cost of manufacture for our pouch by 50%. So we now have the ability to get to profit by 2027, with revenue forecast by 2030 of 9 million. Once we get to profit, we expect that we can achieve an exit. There's been a lot of activity in terms of acquisitions in the ostomy space recently, with 4 companies in the ostomy continent space acquired over the past 2 years. And these acquisitions have happened by private equity firms because of the reliable recurring nature of revenue in ostomy means that it's very attractive to private equity firms because there's always that repeat sale. And we see that, or we know that when we reach profit, we'll generate interest from private equity firms. And with that, we'll be able to generate competitive tension from strategics, from other ostomy companies, anticipating an exit in late 2027 with 2.2 million in revenue and with profit. We put together a very strong team as we scale the business. And this company has originated through my participation in the BioInnovate Medical Device Accelerator, a well-established accelerator in the west of Ireland. My background is engineering PhD and entrepreneurship masters, and worked in a class 1 medical device company as group research and innovation manager, where I worked with Owen Spain, who is R&D and quality manager. So we have a lot of experience in getting products to market together. Sheila Judge has managed accounts, class 1 medical device distributor accounts of over 15 million euro in previous role. Stefan Bonlicka has been head of ostomy in 2 of the largest ostomy companies in Hollister and Convatec. Paul Gilson is a highly successful medical device entrepreneur with many exits behind him. And our chairman, Ray Cantwell, was senior finance director in Medtronic. We're now raising a 2.1 million euro investment round to get us to profit and to get us to an exit. We already have over €1 million of that secured. We'll use the funds to continue to scale in the US market, to continue to appoint distributors globally, to expand on our innovative product portfolio, and to reach profit by 2027, at which point we see the possibility for an exit. Thanks very much for listening. I'll pause there for questions.
Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Great presentation. Thank you very much. And there are some questions that are, sorry, there are a number of questions that have come in already. So we'll get into those. Fergal, do you want to kick off with the first one, please?
Yeah, just in terms of financials, Kevin, just what is your average monthly burn, probably for, like, just give us an average over the last maybe 3 months and 6 months?
Yeah, it's now down at 140,000. As we were developing our pouch, it was up at 190,000. So we've significantly reduced our burn over the past 6 months.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. Excellent. Can you tell us about the pathway? You mentioned the new product that you've got, Coupler. What's the regulatory pathway that you've got for that outlined?
Yeah, it's relatively low risk and straightforward in that it's a class 1 medical product. It's easier to get the product into the US, a bit like how SymPhysis have said already. It's easier to get the product into the US first, and that will be the first place we launch it. And we'll use the data from our US launch to then very quickly afterwards get the product onto market in Europe. So yeah, we don't need a patient trial pre-launch, so we can launch it without significant patient data.
Very good.
Excellent. Just in terms of your funding journey, what has been the progress to date, and who are joining Spark investors today, Kevin? And maybe just for everyone on the call today, maybe give a rundown on BFG and just the importance of them as being an anchor investor.
Yeah, our first round, we raised 1.1 million, and the investors in that round included SOS Ventures, a VC in Cork, and the HBAN MedTech Syndicate, and some other angel investors. And then in 2021, BGF, Business Growth Fund, they came in as a lead investor. So they're established institutional investors supporting growth businesses. And along with that, our other investors in the main followed. So for this round again, BGF will be participating, SOS Ventures will be participating, the HBAN MedTech Syndicate will be participating, all of whom have already committed funds.
Excellent. And yeah, we're delighted to have a chance to get Spark investors as well. Chris, have you any more?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, no, yeah, it's great to be able to get alongside some of these very well established and very well regarded kind of VC companies. One question here is about your revenue. Where will the majority of this come from for this year?
Yeah, the revenue last year was 65% US. This year, because we've entered new markets outside of the US, it's it's weighing to about 40% US and 60% outside the US. The seal is still our main revenue driver, but the pouch is growing and will take more of a share of our total revenue. In 2026, this year it'll be about 70% seal revenue, 30% pouch revenue, and then starting to flip over the other way from 26 onwards.
And do you see a couple of kind of
Yeah, we
overtaking
build
those as well, or?
Yeah, we build that into our overall pouch forecast, but it's it's another reason that we'll see more of an inflection upwards on our pouch revenue from 2026.
Great.
A question just here, actually a good one. I can understand why investors would want to exit at some stage in 3 to 5 years, but what is your and your team's obviously own long-term goal for Ostoform?
Yeah, we're seeing this as a business that can grow to be a sustainable and great company in its own right. And so there is every scope that we can achieve an exit in 2027, but that exit may be an exit where investors are bought out, shareholders take something off the table, but the company can continue to run in its own right. We're seeing that we've reliable, recurring, very healthy revenue. We've a way to get to profit and retain and build on our profits. So I'm very, very much motivated to continue in that journey. At the same time, I realize that investors will want to see a return on their investment at some point, but we see ways to accommodate that and still have Ostoform as a company continue to build and go on to great things.
Brilliant.
Very
Thank
good. Sorry, let me just find this next one. Can your technology be used in any other markets outside of ostomy?
It can, and it has been.
Sorry, excuse me.
We've seen and heard of our product being used for fistula management. So it's another market where there's kind of these wounds that need to be treated, and there's all this output from the wounds that need to be managed. And yeah, we've seen, and we're actually adding fistula to our indication for use, which will again expand our market opportunity outside of ostomy as we have it. We've also been told that it's been used on a tracheostomy up on the throat. So yeah, we hear these anecdotes, and as we hear them, we continue to monitor them, record them, and with them we can expand our indication for use. Also with our disruptive technology, our Cooper product, the new manufacturing method, that method has a lot of potential for use or for using in markets outside of ostomy, like in wearables, in wound care, and in continence care and catheter securement. So yeah, there is a lot of other scope. We try to remain focused on what we're doing, but every time we hear of something new, we try to capture it and build it into future opportunities.
Brilliant. Just EWIS question here. So you're confirmed at 35% EWIS. Also, is there any debt in the business?
No debt. There is a convertible loan note, which is taken in already as kind of bridging for this round. So, we can look at that as debt, but otherwise, no, there's no to minimal debt.
Excellent. Very good. Yeah, just a question for myself, I suppose, just on your IP protection. Is there anyone else in the market in Europe that are innovating, or even in the US, or how have your kind of IP portfolio been secured to date?
Yeah, with the first part of that, the ostomy industry, ostomy patients, we see as very much an underserved population because there's been very little innovation in ostomy over the past 20 years. And the products that are on market now are very similar to the products that have been here for so long, in spite of patients having this significant clinical need. So it's a market that's ripe for disruption. There is IP being developed by some of the R&D teams and some of the other ostomy companies, but generally the bigger ostomy companies are focused on market share retention, improving their gross margins, not so much on innovation.
Innovation, yeah.
And thanks very much. And someone's asked the same question as they did for SymPhysis, and regarding the return on investment. Then Kevin, what do you see is it likely to be over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, we're at closing this round, we're looking at a valuation at close at around 10 million, and our revenue forecast of 9 million 2030, we see scope for an exit at 50 million plus, and so it's kind of in the next 5 years of 5x plus return on investment. There is scope for an exit sooner, and we still want to target as big a return as possible for investors, but the closer you get to now, maybe the smaller the exit. So it's something we'll determine based on what comes in at the time, and it's all to be determined from 2027 onwards.
Very good. Excellent.
Brilliant.
Great. Okay. Well, listen, there are a couple of other questions here, but we're running out of time, so I do want to kind of wrap it up at that point. So, Kevin, thank you very much indeed for all of your responses there and for the presentation, of course. And also thanks to the SymPhysis guys, Michelle, and to Tim as well. It was a great session. If anybody on the call wants to arrange a one-on-one with either Kevin or with Tim and Michelle, we're very happy and willing to facilitate that, of course. That means that you can actually ask them the questions themselves and get a little bit more of an insight in a one-to-one scenario, and we're happy to facilitate that over a Zoom call or something like that. So please do reach out if you'd like to do that. Don't forget, both companies are live on the platform at the moment. Both are in the 70-80% funded at the moment, and we have notifications from a number of investors that there's more investment coming in. So please don't delay if you would like to invest. And of course, both companies are EIS qualifying as well, which means that you reduce your the actual exposure by a third by getting that back from the taxman, which is very useful. So thank you very much indeed, everybody, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
See you.